Hello, third graders. This week we're going to be talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and we're going to learn a little bit about him and his life. Go ahead and get started. Our learning target this week is I can recall facts I know to help me learn something new. So we're going to talk about some things that we know, and those are going to be jumping points into some new things that we're just learning. Okay, here we go. So the first thing I would like to talk about is what we already know. We already know that Monday was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and we celebrated it, and we didn't have school that day. So that's something we know. But did you know why we didn't have school that day? Do you know who Martin Luther King Jr. is and what he's done for our country? Well, today we're going to be watching a video and reading a book that kind of go over those things. So the first thing we're going to do is going to watch a video, and the video is going to have some things on it that will tell you about Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, what he did, and then Martin Luther King Jr. Day and how we celebrate it. So some of the things I would like for you to pay attention to is on the video are these. First of all, do you know what the word discrimination means? Well, it tells you on the video. How about segregation? We're going to watch our video, and then after that, we'll come back and we'll answer some of our questions. Okay?
The third Monday in January is observed as the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. and is an official U.S. holiday. Dr. King's actual birthday is January 15th. Dr. King was a church and community leader who spoke out against racial discrimination, the unfair treatment of people based on the color of their skin or where they came from. His voice became familiar to millions of people during the Civil Rights Movement, a time when many people were working hard to change unfair laws. These laws prevented many African Americans from using public areas, going to certain schools, or even entering some stores and restaurants. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. believed people should stand up for what is right and stop injustice any way they can, but never through the use of violence. As recognition for his ideas and dedication, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. The Civil Rights Movement led to historic changes in our country's laws. In 1994, the U.S. government encouraged Americans to use the King holiday as a national day of volunteer action. Now, on the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, volunteers across the country donate their time to making a difference. How would you like to volunteer your time on the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
All right, so great video. I love that it was kind of short, but it really answered a lot of questions. So first of all, discrimination. Now, discrimination is treating someone differently because of the color of their skin. Now, is that a good thing to do? Should we do that? No, we should not. We should never judge someone or treat someone different because they look a little different than we do. So that's discrimination. And that was something that Martin Luther King Jr. was fighting against. He was a leader in what was called the Civil Rights Movement. Now, the Civil Rights Movement was a period in our history where there were lots of people fighting to change laws that made things unequal for people here in our country. So once again, change laws that led to discrimination. They had these laws that caused segregation. Now, segregation is when you keep people apart because of the color of their skin. So they had actual laws that said that boys and girls of different colors could not, with different skin colors, could not go to school together. So they had different schools for them. And do you think that was a very good thing to do? No, it wasn't. I love that we can go to school with all kinds of boys and girls that look very different from each other. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So also on the video, it talked a little bit about Martin Luther King Jr. Day today. It is celebrated on the third Monday of January. Now his birthday's the 15th, but they do that because that way it stays on a Monday, because we like to have our Monday holidays in the United States. And because a lot of government workers, banks, schools, get off on this holiday because it's a national holiday. Okay. Okay, so let's go and move ahead and let's talk about something else we already know about. Let's talk about what a nonfiction book is. So, nonfiction is a type of book or a type of writing that has what characteristics? Can you tell me? Yeah, they have facts, they're true, they're real events, and they're real people. So, in the book we're going to read today, when Martin Luther King Jr. wore roller skates, this is an actual true story of his life. It's got facts in it, they're true. There were some real events that happened and real people, including Martin Luther King Jr. himself and his family and some of his friends. So, now this is a special kind of nonfiction book. Now, I think we've talked about this before, but what is a kind of nonfiction book that is a true story about a person's life? That's right. It's a biography. And I think you've talked about biographies in your classes with your teachers in third grade. And so this is a biography. Now, I love this particular biography because it kind of goes back to when he was young and what his life was like as a kid living in Atlanta. And it really does is a good story, and it really does take him from all the way from the time he was born till when he died. So we're going to read this story, and then when we're done, we're going to talk about it a little bit more, okay? So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story.
When Martin Luther King Jr. Wore Roller Skates by Mark Weekland, illustrated by Patrick Ballesteros. Now, this is a biography, and a biography is a true story of someone's life. It's factual. It's about a true person. So it is a nonfiction book because it's about a real person who really lived. But this kind of tells kind of his background, tells about his childhood, and also tells about some of the things that he did when he was an adult. When Martin Luther King Jr. was 8 years old, a woman in a department store lunged at him and slapped him. "You stepped on my foot," she yelled. Martin didn't know the angry white woman standing in front of him, but he stayed calm. Although he was shocked, he simply walked away. Martin was a child who learned to overcome difficulties without violence. Like his mother, he was gentle and caring. Like his father, he was determined and fearless. Martin drew on these childhood traits as he grew up. He became a leader admired by millions of people around the world. It was January 15th, 1929. In the hallway outside of his bedroom, Martin Luther King Sr. nervously paced. His family called him Daddy King. Inside the bedroom, his wife was giving birth. Daddy King leaped with joy when he found out that the baby was a boy. No one knew then that this small child would become a great man. The Kings named their son Michael after Daddy King. But a few years later, Daddy King changed both his name and his son's name to Martin. Martin's parents gave him a wonderful life. He lived in a comfortable home. He had a younger brother and an older sister to play with, and he had loving adults all around him, including his grandparents who lived in the same house. Daddy King was a minister. His sermons and his interest in civil rights helped shape Martin's beliefs early on. Martin's mother taught him to believe in himself. "You are as good as anyone," she said. In Martin's family, church was an important part of life. Once his father hosted a guest preacher from Virginia. The man talked to folks about joining the church. Martin's sister was the first one to sign up. When he saw her joining, little Martin decided to join too. "You're only 5 years old," said the preacher. "I'm not going to let my sister get ahead of me," Martin said. "I'm joining next." So he joined the Ebenezer Baptist Church with the rest of his family. Martin's family lived in a 12-room house on Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. The house was the center of Martin's universe. In the backyard, he played with kids from the neighborhood. He roller skated and biked up and down Auburn Avenue with his friends. At school, Martin got along with the other children, but there was a school bully. When the bully hit him, Martin refused to fight back. He knew violence was not the answer. Martin's brother was named Alfred Daniel, but everyone called him A.D. He and Martin loved to run and play. They played football and baseball. They played basketball at the fire station near their house. Because of racial segregation, no black men or women worked there. But at the station, kids of different races all played together. See all the different races that are represented there? Every evening, the King sat down to eat dinner together. Martin's father insisted that no one eat until he got home. When Daddy King got home late, the kids were starving, but they still couldn't eat. First, they had to recite a Bible verse. The boys were smart. The verse they often picked was just 2 words. Jesus wept. "It's the shortest verse in the Bible," said Martin with a grin. Martin often played with a boy from the neighborhood. It didn't matter to Martin that the boy was white. The two of them were very good friends. One day, the boy's father told his son that he could no longer play with Martin. Martin did not understand why the boys couldn't be friends. "Why?" he asked Daddy King. "Why did his father say we can't play together?" Martin's parents talked to him about race and segregation. They told him that black people were often treated terribly. Martin was shocked. He decided he should hate white people. "You should not hate the white man. It's your duty as a Christian to love him," said his parents. Martin had a hard time understanding this. "How can I love a race of people who hate me and who are responsible for breaking me up with one of my very best childhood friends?" he asked. "You must try," said his mother. "One day I'll change things," said Martin. "One day I'm going to turn this world upside down." You know what? He really does. Martin was determined. He felt angry when he experienced discrimination because of the color of his skin. When he was 14 years old, Martin traveled on a bus with a teacher to a speech contest. On the way home, Martin and his teacher were forced out of their seats so whites could take them. It was a 90-mile trip. Martin and his teacher stood for 3 hours on the ride home. Martin later said, "It was the angriest I have ever been in my life." He couldn't believe that it was so unfair that he couldn't sit down just because of the color of his skin. Martin was very smart. He skipped right over the 9th and 11th grades. By age 15, Martin started college. In college, Martin was popular, but he wasn't sure about the rest of his life. He had always thought he would become a minister like his father, but he began to question his faith. Eventually, though, he came back to his roots. "I have decided to lead a church," he told his father, which of course made his father very happy. By the time Martin was 25 years old, he had earned a doctoral degree. He married Coretta Scott. Like Martin, she believed in the importance of peace. The couple settled in Montgomery, Alabama, and had 4 children. Martin's parents were proud when he became pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. His father, Daddy King, was especially happy. As Martin grew older, he became more active in helping African Americans gain rights. He was chosen to be the spokesperson for the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. Later, he led nonviolent actions, including sit-ins, demonstrations, and marches for civil rights. He said that he would not respond to violence with violence. Martin gave some of the most memorable speeches in American history. In 1963, he gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech before 200,000 people in Washington, D.C. In his speech, Martin said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." So he wanted people to be judged by who they were inside, not by the color of their skin on the outside. Now, this is an afterword. This is something sometimes you'll find in a nonfiction book, especially a biography. And I'm going to read it because it's got some important information. Throughout his life, Martin Luther King Jr. fought peacefully for civil rights. He also focused on helping the poor and on world peace. In 1964, Martin received the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts. In 1964 and 1965, he played an instrumental part in securing civil rights and voting rights for all African Americans. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed in Memphis, Tennessee at the age of 39. He was only 39 years old. Throughout his life, Martin Luther King Jr. held tight to the traits he developed as a young boy: gentleness, caring, fearlessness, and determination. By staying true to himself, he became a great American leader. And that's why we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
So let's go over some of the things that we have learned today. First of all, we already knew that we had celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We learned what segregation was, keeping people apart because of their skin color. We learned what discrimination is. Discrimination is treating people unfairly because of their skin color. Okay. We learned about the civil rights movement and that Martin Luther King Jr. was a leader of the civil rights movement. Now, one of the things that made him really great was that he did everything he did, all of his protests and everything that he did in a non-violent way. Do you know what non-violent means? Yeah, it means not violent. It means there was no violence. So he did speeches where lots of people came. They did marches where they got together and marched down the street. They did sit-ins where people got together and just sat. They did protests, but they never, ever, ever caused any violence. No one ever got hurt at one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s rallies or speeches or anything. So that was one of the greatest things about him. He truly believed in nonviolence, that you can change the government and change beliefs and change the laws by protesting in nonviolent ways. And that was one of the most wonderful things about him, and that's why we actually have a day to honor him. And one of the things that we do now to honor him, after in the 80s they created the Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and now we get that day off of school every year, but many people around the country on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, they have a day of service. And in 1994, they basically made this a day of service. So you can go out into your community and do something good. You can help feed the poor, work in a food pantry, or pick up garbage along the road, or do something that helps somebody else. Even a small act of kindness is something you can do to help somebody else around you. And every time you help somebody else or you're kind to somebody else, doesn't that spread just a little bit of kindness around? Yeah, it does. So on our slide, if you go down one more slide, you're going to see this one. Now, I wish that you could come to the library and check out all the books you want. But because we can't do that, I create these slides. And on here, these are read aloud. So if you click on the book covers, you're going to get a read aloud. And these books tell you more about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There's also some songs. I think these up here are songs. This one is a video. I think it's a Kid President video about Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Also a video. This one's a video about how to draw Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So if you really love to draw, that's a great one for you. Okay. So I wanted to put all kinds of stuff on here so you had all kinds of opportunity to do something beyond what we just watched. For Crazy Jokes with Mrs. Couch. That's right. It's time for our joke. So it is a winter joke because it's January. So here we go. Are you listening? Here we go. What do you call a snowman party? Do you give up? It's a snowball. I hope you enjoyed that joke just as much as I did. Go out and share it with someone that you know. And don't forget, I'll see you next time. And keep reading.